too daunting. Just give up.
Right? I would have been like, there's literally nothing we can do.
That was really great. I know it's like Halloween season still, but
Wow.
no.
Harken back to our rat episode. The wrinkly old 2-day-old balloons.
The like sad ballsack 2-day-old balloons. Now they're all now and
Still,
it's raining
just
now.
a little bit hard to catch.
Yeah.
Yep.
Lastly, I have some cool facts about Cleveland. I don't have very many.
Just to say, how many could you possibly have?
God, is your case over yet?
No, gets worse.
Viewer discretion is advised.
Halfway there.
You are listening to Wine and Crime, the podcast where three friends chug wine, chat true crime, and unleash their worst Minnesotan accents. I am Kenyan, and I have a never-ending sinus infection.
We're barely holding it together over
I
here.
am shattered into 1 million pieces.
I'm Lucy, and according to my app, I have a piglet in my gut.
Oh,
mini pig.
Mini pig.
She is kicking appropriately.
Adopt,
gut.
don't shop.
Oh, God. I'm Amanda. I'm also sick. I don't have a piglet in my belly. Nothing to see here, people.
We're doing great. It's fine. It's fine.
Yep.
It's fine.
We're all fine. We're all fine.
And what better way to be fine than to talk about Cleveland?
Yeah, what better way to celebrate being ill than discussing Cleveland?
One of our favorite cities, as listeners of the podcast will attest. We have never once said anything bad about Cleveland.
Nope. Nothing bad to say.
No. And
A truly perfect snapshot of society can be found
it's a
in Cleveland.
microcosm. It's heaven. Heaven on the Cuyahoga. That's what I call it.
Very appreciative and supportive audiences.
Oh, yeah.
Who laugh
They
at the
just
right
love
times
us.
and don't
Love
sit in
us down
silence.
Yep.
We have to tell the story
All
again.
right.
We have told it
Tell it again.
For
many
this episode.
times. Go ahead.
When we were on tour in 2019, BC, we had a show in Cleveland and we did Cleaver Crimes. And
Great
I thought
topic.
our content was really fun.
Yeah.
We didn't know till we got there that it was like a dinner theater and
it was
that
a
people would
supper
be
club.
It was
people
great.
would be eating during Cleaver Crimes. And Amanda's case in particular was a guy who chopped people up and made them into barbecue.
Roadside barbecue.
Yeah.
And they had
Perfect
pulled pork
fare for a
barbecue
supper club show.
tacos. People were eating them right in front of us. That was my favorite
That
part.
was not the issue.
No, that wasn't the
No.
issue. But as soon as we were done, like, the audience was not
Crickets.
responsive.
Crickets.
Nobody laughed at our incredible jokes.
Best work.
And then when we got off stage, we were like, what happened?
What just happened out? We were shell shocked.
Completely.
And then the manager of the theater later came up to us and was like, okay, you guys did a fantastic job. I moved here from Chicago to start this theater, so I
to let you
am able to tell you that for whatever reason, Cleveland audiences are unresponsive.
Yeah, she was
Do
like,
not
we
laugh.
have to teach them that if they want an encore for like a music show, they have to
Clap.
participate as an audience to
Yeah.
get it.
So
And we were like, okay.
that made us
And
feel
then in
a
our
little
meet and
bit
greet
better.
line, people were like so nice and talked about how great the show was. And we were
Oh.
like, are you sure?
One
Are
on
you
one, it
there?
was like the nicest meet and greet city we'd ever done.
Yeah,
but
it was
people
shocking.
were like crying and
the collective audience was
was
so
so bizarre.
uncomfortable.
It was the weirdest thing ever. And then I was re-traumatized because my cousin got married and his now wife, her family lives in the Cleveland area, and they got married at like the aquarium across the parking lot from that venue.
Oh.
Yeah. So I was just like trapped
Jimmy
there
Buffett's
again.
Margaritaville.
Oh,
Yeah.
you could still see it, still standing, unlike the one in Times Square.
So that's our experience with Cleveland.
Our trauma.
My one and only visit.
But we're redoing Cleveland Crimes because technically the first one was Cleaver Crimes.
Yep.
True.
And we're never touching this topic again after today.
Yeah. This is it. So you're welcome to our very special fan picker, Allie. Allie wants to shout out their gateway gal and teammate D Crypt from Burning River Roller Derby. That sounds fun.
Burning
That makes
River.
sense because your river has been on fire like 3 times.
We'll get to it.
We'll
I'm
get,
sure
we'll
we
get
will.
to the dangerous bodies of water in Cleveland.
I love it.
Burning River. Also, Burning River just alone is a great name for a roller derby team.
Yeah,
Really
it's
is.
really cool.
Yeah.
Even without all of the significance of your
Yes.
river burning.
Yes.
So we approve. Thank you, Allie and Decrypt. Should we get right to the wine crime pairing? Mine is Dayquil and rum in a Swiss Miss hot chocolate.
That sounds safe.
You mix together? Oh.
No, I'm mixing inside my body. I took Dayquil capsules and then I poured a bunch of rum into my Swiss Miss hot cocoa because I'm fucking sick of drinking tea.
Good
Yeah.
for you.
That's
Good
fair.
for fucking you.
Thank you.
I'm earlier on in my sickness, so I am not drinking, but I'm give it a week, and I'm sure that will change. Sorry, I'm fucking yawning because I'm also on a bunch of meds. But our amazing fan picker had requested that we look into and also shout out CLE Urban Winery. And their website is really cool. You can check them out at cleurbanwinery.com. They have a really cool, very chic space. And it's kind of a cool concept because they do like it's almost like going into a brewery. So when you go in, you can see like the tanks and stuff like that behind glass.
I love that.
They don't grow their own grapes because they don't have a vineyard, but they source the grapes from the West Coast and then they age them and, do all of their cooking, their pressing, their destemming, all of that they do at this winery. It's just the only part that they're not doing is growing their own grapes, which honestly, also being
in Ohio anyway.
Yeah, also being in a Midwest viticultural region where our grapes are not good for wine because like the only thing that thrives here is Concord grapes in this cold. Like just get your grapes from the West Coast. You're doing right by this.
Yeah.
But, I think they also have possibly some local wines because they're about us also says that they will change your mind about Ohio wine. I'm like, okay, I'll listen.
As long
I'll
as the
take
grapes
it.
aren't grown there, I'm happy.
Yeah. They have a really cool tasting room. They have a winery that they give tours of. It's like really beautiful. It's woman owned. And I'm here for
Can I tell you
it.
guys a dad joke that
Yes.
I got from Colin Robinson on What We Do in the Shadows?
Sure.
Yes.
What's the fastest way to become a millionaire?
I don't know.
You,
To marry one and then kill him.
you start off as a billionaire and then you buy a winery.
There you go. There you go.
Way better answer.
Very good. Very funny.
Just
I
start
want-
off as a billionaire.
I want to highlight the Drawbridge Pinot Noir because it looks quite delicious. And that Drawbridge is like right where our show was. So we are very familiar with it. And maybe this will help us heal some of that trauma. So this says our gorgeous Pinot Noir with medium body and acidity, mellow tannins and aromas and flavors of black cherry and berries is made from grapes sourced from Sonoma's Russian River Valley, which, hell yes, such a good Pinot Noir growing region. This wine honors Cleveland's river bridges and the sounds of one long whistle and two short ones from the transiting ships on the river that bring these bridges to life.
They love their rivers.
They really do. Cleveland has a variety of beautiful and practical movable bridge structures along the 2.5-mile navigation channel of the Cuyahoga River in the heart of the city. River vessels have right-of-way and can signal from the water to open these bridges, which, although utilitarian and industrial, inspire in many the same kind of adoration as a cathedral.
Oh.
But this
same
Pinot
kind?
the same kind.
I will say that being the resident of a smaller Midwestern adjacent city on a river, folks really care deeply about
their bridges. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Big time.
When you're on a river, that's your culture.
People tell you all about the different bridges, how many bridges, when the bridges were built, when the bridges were refurbished. Have you done the walking bridge? This is on the other side of the bridge.
Just ask
You
them
should
about
see the bridge lit up at night. You should see the bridge under the fireworks. You should see the bridge on St. Patrick's Day.
You should just traumatize them. Actually, I follow this subreddit that I laugh at all the time that you should follow if you ever go on Reddit. It's called like traumatize them back. Or like if someone dumps their trauma on you or something that you just do not give a fuck about, then you respond with something adjacent but like really traumatizing. It's really funny. So you should just
Social interaction.
Yeah, you should just write, speak back to them being like, you know what? I just really am triggered by bridges. I'm from Minneapolis and I was like on the 35W bridge when it collapsed. And it was, I mean, that would obviously be a huge lie because neither of us were. But just saying, #traumatize them back.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that.
Anyway,
mutual trauma.
I am not drinking this wine, obviously, but they do have a wine club. They do ship wine from their winery. And next time, if ever, we are in Cleveland again, I would gladly pop in and give it a taste.
Cool.
Nice.
Back to you, Lucy. I have to blow my nose.
Okay.
I thought I could just miss out on some facts about Cleveland.
Nope. You gotta suffer with the rest of us. Okay.
Great.
Okay. Here is my segment. I went a little bit off the rails, but I had to because it was for everyone's benefit. The city of Cleveland is located in northeast Ohio at the mouth of the Cuyahoga River. I did Google how to pronounce it.
Yep.
I feel like some people say it as Cayuga.
I think it's Cuyahoga. That's how I've always heard it.
That's definitely what the looked up pronunciation is. Maybe I'm thinking of a totally different river.
Well,
or place.
I think people who live in Cleveland pronounce it a specific way. Mm-hmm. But Cuyahoga is what Google said.
Oh, yum. I would love a hoagie right now.
Cuyahoga. On the southern shore of Lake Erie. So that river, fun fact, is a young glacial river. It was one of the last rivers that basically was a melting glacier.
Cool.
Out of that area.
Lake Erie also has its own lake monster.
Oh, fun.
Called Bessie, like the Loch Ness Monster, but it's Bessie instead of Nessie.
Creative.
Yeah.
Cleveland
Soup's creative.
Is the second largest city in Ohio after Columbus. However, Cleveland is more densely populated, so a lot of people consider it more city-ish.
Mm-hmm.
Ohio has far too many cities.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
It's got a lot of cities.
Yeah, decent-sized ones.
Yeah.
You only need one. You're not that big a state.
What's the other one?
Cincinnati.
Columbus.
Cleveland. There's a fourth.
Does it also start with a C?
Probably.
Fucking
God.
probably.
Confusing.
Cleveland.
Confusing Ohio.
Confusing. Is often attributed to the greater Cleveland area, so the Cleveland metro. And as of 2022, the U.S. Census estimated that 2.16 million people live in the Cleveland metro area versus Cleveland proper, which was only 361,000.
Mm-hmm.
Big metro. Big. The Cleveland area is known for its large Polish population, culture, and history. Lots of Poles,
pierogies,
yum,
sausages. Distinct Polish neighborhoods began forming by the late 1870s as there was an increase in Polish migration to Cleveland due to German cultural pressure in Prussian Poland and poverty and repression in Russian Poland. Didn't get too far into that. Can't say that I cared to.
A lot of immigration.
A lot of immigration. And then the first Cleveland rolling mills strike in 1882. So the rolling mills were steel mills. It was a specific kind of steel that they used with these big rollers.
Okay.
And one of the reasons why the river has caught on fire so many times, well, pretty much the reason is because of pollution.
Yep.
which during this time, Industrial Revolution, they just dumped all their oil and all of their chemical shit into the river.
And they were like, that's just an unfortunate runoff. Next.
They were still drinking it until they were like, this doesn't taste great.
We will get to it.
Okay,
I have every cancer. How did that happen?
I think a river is supposed to be the viscosity of gack.
Yeah. It's supposed to give you a rash. Right?
That's just Cleveland.
It's working.
So, the first Cleveland rolling mill strike in 1882 was responsible for a sizable growth in the area's Polish population because they recruited immigrants from New York to come and help them strike.
Help them strike or to be scabs?
I don't know. Were recruited in New York to break the strike.
To be scabs. Okay. But I mean, a Polish immigrant's got to do what a Polish immigrant's got to do. No shade.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's 1870.
Yeah.
Real hard.
It was 1882.
Yep.
And there was another one in, I think, 85. And that was the last one. But a lot of their union strike efforts kind of fell apart because there were so many immigrants working at these factories, and all the higher ups, most of them did not speak Polish, and most of the workers did not speak English. So their negotiations just kind of, it was a detriment to their negotiations. Okay, so because of Cleveland's mills and other growing industries, Cleveland's Polish people, were largely linked to heavy industry and labor, as many of the entrepreneurial ventures were directed toward fellow Poles rather than the community at large. So they were very insular.
Yeah.
All of these opportunities that they got, entrepreneurial, starting their own businesses, they just gave them to fellow Polish people.
Well, probably because they were faced with so much discrimination from the outside. So when they could help each other, they wanted to.
Yeah.
Right. Precisely.
Oh, I would do the same thing. But that's kind of why their community stayed really
very
insular.
Vibrant, strong.
By 1930, Cleveland had a population of 36,668 foreign-born Polish citizens. Wow. It's a shitload of Polish people. But then today, there are only 1,600 of them. And most of these citizens of Polish descent are living in Independence, which is this town in the metro area.
Interesting.
So
a little Polish suburb.
Yeah, they call it wouldn't be Slovakian.
No.
Well, it's some kind of village that they have there. Probably with, great food. But they peaked in the early 20th century. So a note about the Cuyahoga River. It is commonly believed that the word is a translation from a vague Native American language meaning crooked river. Okay. A lot of cities in Cleveland or along this river will have their name be Crooked River, blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
But there's evidence that it's more likely a corruption of an Iroquois or Seneca term meaning either on the Chin or Elm River.
Okay.
So Crooked River, I think a lot of people stake a lot of claim to that, but it very well might not be true.
That might have just been a rumor that kind of stuck. Okay.
It is crooked.
Right.
Well, sure. What rivers aren't?
Right. The name Ohio comes from the Seneca meaning beautiful river.
Nice.
That's a river
centric,
exactly. So a bit more about the pre-European Ohio Valley that I personally found cool. It doesn't have a lot to do with Cleveland specifically, and I'm going to tell you about it anyway because we're learning today. So a lot of different tribes lived in the area that is now Cleveland, including the Ojibwe, the Potawatomi, the Anishinaabe, Dene, Choctaw, Iroquois, and Shawnee, among many others. Obviously thousands and thousands of years. Beginning around 100 BCE, there was a trading network that stretched from what is now New York down through Ohio all the way to modern-day Florida, mostly along their rivers because trading, travel, all that.
Much easier, yeah.
This spread cultural traditions between the tribes in this area. So they had a lot of common social elements rather than just being all isolated individual tribes. So this created what's known as the Hopewell tradition. This included sharing knowledge about specialized uses for resources, the way that they structured their societies, like political hierarchies, and mortuary customs.
Nice.
Cool.
Ding, ding, ding.
Now she comes alive.
Yep. These societies use earthworks, so like mounds, for various things, but many of them were burial structures. This was super common in specifically the Adena culture, which refers to a number of related societies in the now Ohio area specifically. So the Adena culture was older than the Hopewell tradition, but they're linked because they're basically like, okay, these tribes traded with each other and like shared information and had a lot of similar customs.
Mm-hmm.
So they would build this structure. They'd put the dead person or people inside. They would put offerings inside, pottery, copper, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Then they would burn it and then bury it again with dirt. And then they would repeat that over and over to build up the mound.
Cool.
And I think I didn't find a lot of information on like the structure itself, but I did find one diagram that showed like a more established mound had like many, many layers of old burned like mortuary sites, like where the actual bodies were burned, layered up. And then there's like a structure on top of it, like a worship kind of structure. And then like log stairs that went up the side of it.
That's cool. Honestly, we should bring that back. Burial mounds would be dope.
Yeah. So they used these mounds as social meeting spots, burial structures,
Sacred
obviously,
sites.
Sacred sites, lots of different things. They were very much used.
Mm-hmm.
So like I said, these burial mounds were quite characteristics of societies in the Northeast, but the most numerous and grandly conceived ones are found in the Ohio River Valley, specifically near Ohio, Cleveland.
Mm-hmm.
They can be conical or elliptical mounds surrounded by other ornate earthworks. So the more I kind of looked into earthworks, it was sort of like their version of like how the Greeks used like sculpture.
Mm-hmm.
So they just, because there's one, it's near Cleveland, I think, that's like this, it's like a snake mound. So it's like in the shape of a snake. You could see it from overhead really well.
Mm-hmm.
We here in the upper Midwest might be more familiar with effigy mounds, like that snake mound, which were built in the shapes of animals and other forms.
Mm.
So again, not a lot to do with Cleveland in particular. I just thought
That's
that
cool,
was
though.
Very cool.
Cleveland is also known as the birthplace of rock and roll.
Oh, yeah.
In
My in-laws were just there, and they went to the Rock and Roll Museum.
All right.
Had a rip-roaring good time.
Nothing entices me less than a rock and roll museum.
When they
Tam
were,
loves
when they
the
were
Beatles.
done at the museum, did one of them say, well, ready to rock and roll?
Oh.
That was a weird pause.
Well. Ready to rock and roll? Tom's dad jokes are not as obvious. He's too intellectual. I don't get a lot of them. He's a lawyer.
He's really smart.
I can't run in those circles.
So, okay, birthplace of rock and roll. In 1951, a DJ named Alan Freed had a radio show on WJW in Cleveland called Moondog Rock and Roll Radio Hour, which was named later. So he gained a lot of traction because the music he played for his mostly white audience while he worked there, he slipped in some rock and roll. So people... during this time, people were listening to music that was categorized by race. So they would call it, what they called, quote unquote, race music was music meant for African American audiences. There was a lot of like blues and like that kind of music. But Freed would play, quote unquote, race music for his white audience. But instead of calling it race music, the genre's name was changed to rock and roll, which actually at the time was a term for fucking.
Oh, nice.
It's like sex
Love it.
music. Yeah.
Yeah. So
People-
now anytime a dad says, "Are we ready to rock and roll?" we'll have to let him know.
Just
Did you know
gasp.
that phrase originally meant fucking
Just go,
dad? No, I'm not going to have sex with you, dad. Jesus Christ.
It's the circular trauma thing. Traumatize him.
Traumatize them back. I'm telling you.
So
It always works.
people loved it. And the audience, which again were mostly white teenagers, were being exposed to music that their families would not approve of. And for many
enticing,
people,
Teenagers
thrilling
love-
and sexy.
Yeah.
Turned them
sexy.
on.
Didn't call it race music. He just tried to take the race component out of at least the name of it.
Mm-hmm.
And for many people, the event marked the beginning of rock and roll and its reputation of a rebellion.
Interesting.
Cleveland is also cited as hosting the nation's first rock concert at the Cleveland Arena, thanks to Alan Freed organizing them. I have
The
a picture.
nation's first silent, laughless comedy show at
Yeah, it probably wasn't that exciting.
Wherever.
City Winery, Cleveland, or wherever the fuck we did that show.
It wasn't a
It
city.
was like a
winery.
comedy club with dinner.
Hilarious.
I have a picture on the drive, which will be on the blog, of the poster.
Ooh.
It was like Har Har Jolly's Laughatorium or something. It was
No
like-
fucking way.
No, it
was
wasn't.
Har Har Jolly's Laughatorium. Ma'am.
Sick.
something like that.
God damn it.
I'm Googling it.
You're Googling Har Har Jolly's Laughatorium?
Kenyon loves bias Googling.
Oh, yeah.
You could probably look at a map and find Margaritaville on the river, and it's right there.
It's in the same parking lot as their famous aquarium. It's very easy to find.
Okay, so the headliners at this first rock concert were Paul Williams and the Hucklebuckers, and Tony Grimes and the Rockin' Highlanders.
Wow. Rock and
Okay.
roll used to be so hard.
I
And
think
the
it's just called Improv Comedy Club and Restaurant.
Probably. That
makes
sounds right.
Forever now.
Very clinical.
Har Jolly's
Jolly's.
Laughatorium.
Laughatorium.
the owners were great.
Come on down to Har Har Jolly's, where you won't laugh at all. Because that's our rule.
We had like a butler in the green room, remember?
We had a server.
Oh, he was assigned to us.
Yes, he was also waiting tables out on the main floor.
He felt like a butler.
Oh my God.
Amanda
You're not allowed to go to restaurants.
fully took a nap.
On the floor. In my dress. I remember the dress I was wearing, my green dress.
That was a nightmare. Okay, so the fee to get in was $1.50.
Mm-hmm.
And here's a quote from my boyfriend, Encyclopedia Britannica. Moving to New York City and WINS in 1954, Freed continued to produce lucrative concerts. For his efforts, he drew charges of race mixing
Oh my fucking God.
and the attention of vigilant police.
I bet.
A disturbance at a concert in Boston in 1958, which was described in a different article as after a riot at a dance in Boston featuring Jerry Lee Lewis.
Gasp. This is
Gasp.
within the lifetime of our parents. This
yeah.
is so fucking stupid. Ugh.
So after this disturbance resulted in criminal charges against Freed and his departure from WINS. In 1960, he was enveloped in the congressional hearings on payola, which is a combination of pay and Victrola.
Oh my God.
Wow.
There was this big scandal at the time where DJs would receive money or gifts by representative of record companies in exchange for playing their records. I can talk exchange. It was like this big bribery music scandal that, like, okay, you brought Victrola into it. It's not, you're not that cool, dude.
It was still a fucking geriatric what do you call it? A geriarchy? What am I trying to say? John, cut this. What do you
cut
Keep
it.
it
It's
in.
hilarious.
Keep it in. Let her struggle.
geriarchy.
You know what I mean?
Old people.
Old people
Old people
archy.
archy.
It's what
Of
we have now.
Congress.
Old people arky. Elderarchy.
Elderarchy.
Okay, so he got in trouble for payola, and his career was in jeopardy. Also, he was a raging alcoholic. After relocating,
He was a DJ. That
All
goes
the good
without
DJs
saying.
are, yeah.
he
part of the
popularized
jam.
rock and roll in white audiences, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So he moved to Los Angeles, where he worked at KDAY for a short time. Then he was indicted on charges of tax evasion in 1964 and died
for
in
him.
1965.
Good for him.
His ashes are interred at Cleveland's Lakeview Cemetery beneath a jukebox-shaped memorial.
Oh my God, I want to go
Cringe.
visit his grave.
The grave is actually pretty cool.
Do you have a picture of it?
Yeah, it's on the drive.
I don't see it.
This is Alan Freed Lakeview.
Oh, there it is. Oh, that's cute. Okay, it's not overtly jukebox shaped.
Yeah, it's just rounded.
I don't think I would have made that
approve.
connection if
It's-
you hadn't, but I also approve.
For a jukebox-shaped tombstone, it's fairly classy.
Right.
He's a jukebox hero.
So, lastly, I have some cool facts about Cleveland. I don't have very many.
I was going to say, how many could you possibly have?
Cleveland was the first city to be lit electrically in 1875.
But then why is Scranton the electric city?
I don't know. Why
Because
would you ask me?
want electricity.
It was also the first to use an electric traffic signal.
Oh, we'll get to the
Wow.
traffic signals.
Oh, good.
I know why Cleveland was the first.
Hey, you gals like potato chips?
Oh my God, yes.
Because potato chips were first mass-produced in Cleveland, not Vancouver. Guy.
Really?
The Cuyahoga River, which feeds into Lake Erie, has caught on fire 13 times. And I have
13?
and I have a good quote from the Smithsonian quote. The water was nearly always covered in oil slicks, and it bubbled like a deadly stew. Sometimes rats
What?
floated by, their corpses so bloated they were practically the size of dogs.
Wow. That's an image
That was
I didn't need.
graphic.
That was really great. I know it's like Halloween season still, but
Wow.
Harken back to our rat episode.
cheers to your bloated rats, Cleveland. Your bloated oil rats. The town mascot.
Stew, anyone?
Go, bloated oil rats.
Go, blood oil rat.
The special tonight at Har Har Jolly's Lavatorium is stew.
Bloated oil rat stew.
Sick.
Oh my God.
Lifesavers were invented there. I love
Okay.
lifesavers.
There was a guy on my flight on the way back. I was in Massachusetts this past weekend. Hi, Josh Hallmark, and congrats to him on the opening of his storefront, both and studio, in downtown North Adams.
Love
So
it.
beautiful. But anyway, I was in a fucking middle seat, flanked by two unrelated lifesaver enthusiasts.
What?
No.
Both loudly smacking on
No.
lifesavers that they were not sucking.
They were chewing.
They were chewing them, and I could hear it through my sound canceling headphones.
Oh
Yeah.
my God.
No joke. And then, honestly, I get that it was kind, but I was already mad at them, so I find this egregious. I had put my tray table down, gotten my jacket, balled up my jacket, and I was like making myself as small as possible and laid down my head to just sleep in the middle seat, because that's the only way you could fucking sleep in a middle seat.
Yeah.
The flight attendants came by for beverage service. I already had a beverage. I had a snack that I had brought on the plane. And one of these lifesaver bitches fucking woke me up.
To ask.
I was actually asleep.
No.
ask if you wanted a beverage.
Woke me up.
Don't
And the
do
flight
that.
attendant didn't do it. The gal
No.
sitting next to me
Don't
did
ever
it.
do that.
Yeah, the flight attendants know not to.
Yup. Tapped me on the shoulder.
No.
Touched me. I
No.
was furious. Shook awake.
Then it takes another.
Lifesaver breath. You want anything to drink? No.
Bleach.
Fuck out of here. Anyway, lifesavers are really good though, but don't be like that. Don't be like lifesaver lady.
Don't wake someone up on them. And it also sucks though if you have to wake someone up so you can go to the bathroom.
That I get,
That's
though.
unavoidable.
I will forgive you.
Right.
Yeah.
It's still uncomfortable, but don't wake someone up because of drink service. They know that there's fucking drink service coming.
We know the risk of taking a nap on a plane.
Yeah.
We know the fucking risk. We accept the risk.
What flight were we on? Was it when we went to Johannesburg for Kenyon's wedding? They had like stickers that you could put on your eye mask that said like "Wake me up for food."
Emirates had that.
Yeah,
that was great.
Nice.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just slap a sticker on your face and fall asleep.
Seriously.
And they'll know.
Seriously.
I wish you could do that for more things in life.
Everything.
Slap a
I want
sticker on.
everything to be like Fogo de Chao, where you either have the red card up and they stop bothering you, or you have the green card up and they just keep bringing you meat.
Yeah.
Meat
I wish
just
everything
appears.
were like Fogo de Chao.
This is everything. I want everything in life to be the Fogo de Chao rules of survival.
You can socialize with me. Stay
Red
the
card.
fuck away from me.
Red card.
It's like what they do at swinger parties.
Yeah.
What?
Swinger
Called
parties.
Consent.
Yeah, it really is. So my last will and testament is just a sticker on my forehead.
Anyway.
In 1933, Superman was created in Cleveland by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster. And finally, A Christmas Story was filmed in Cleveland.
That I knew.
And by the way, it was Mother Melinda Dillon's birthday a couple days ago.
Aww.
And a fun fact about the movie A Christmas Story, in the last scene when they're at the Chinese food restaurant, apparently the director wanted the mom to just be like really goofy, like at her wit's end, I'm sure. So
Probably drunk.
he purposely gave her the wrong script.
Oh,
So
God.
everyone else was on the same page, but she was just totally lost.
That's
Thing.
perfect.
And so when they chopped the duck's head off, like all of that was totally authentic. She was like, what the fuck is going on?
That's like such a Kubrick approach to that
so
kind of
good.
directing.
I know.
It's like, it's not that high stakes. It's a Christmas story, y'all. No need to torture your actors.
Oh,
Such a
that's
good
so
film,
good
though.
because that is what it feels like, I'm sure, as a mom on Christmas.
Oh, yeah. In her robe.
No clue what is
And I
happening
got
anymore.
a robe. Yeah.
Yep. And I got a robe.
Okay, that's my Cleveland segment.
Well done.
Well done.
Thanks.
How cute.
Well, this, I'm pretty sure, was the fan pick case.
Yes.
So shout out to Allie.
It was.
Wow.
I vaguely knew about this, but I was very happy to have a chance to dig in
Oh.
and learn more. So prepare to turn on the old waterworks
Oh,
because
uh-oh.
it's tragic.
Oh, good.
No.
Collective groan from Cleveland listeners because they totally know what I'm about to cover.
Oh, God.
So, in the middle of the 19th century, the bustling city of Cleveland, at the time home to around 70,000 people, a lot of Poles, was faced with a public health dilemma. The water its residents were drinking was essentially poison.
Yeah.
The population of Cleveland doubled from 1850 to 1860, and it was around this time that Clevelanders began complaining of tainted water.
It doubled in 10 years.
Yeah, and then it doubled again.
Well, all those polls.
Yeah,
Weird.
it was booming.
Wow.
So by 1876, with the city still growing rapidly, there was an increased sewage flow, blah, and the water supply was fast becoming a serious health hazard because they were just, all the sewage was just being dumped into Lake Erie, and then they were pulling water from Lake Erie to drink.
Okay.
Ugh, that's so gross.
So something had to be done, but unfortunately, the solution ended up being almost as deadly as the problem it sought to correct.
Okay.
At first, the city built water intakes along the shoreline of Lake Erie, but then they were faced with another infrastructure problem, how to get the fresh water from the lake to the pumping station in the city. And then over time, they had to get the water intakes like deeper into the lake to get fresher water than like the shoreline dirty water.
Oh, yeah.
So they just kept needing more infrastructure, basically. Due to Physics, I'm not sure. A series of tunnels had to be dug underneath the lake to make this happen.
That's too daunting. Just give up.
Right? I would have been like, there's literally nothing we can do. Okay.
They started digging a hole for a new airport terminal in Des Moines. And I just get ill every time I think about it. Like, just the thought of such a monumental task.
Right.
And that's just an airport terminal. You're not digging holes under a Great Lake.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah. No, it's fucking bonkers what they did. So workers would literally have to drill through the bedrock beneath Lake Erie to create a tunnel that would transport water from the lake to the city's water treatment plants. And then it had to have like enough pressure basically to get the water through the tunnel all the way to the water treatment plants.
Mm-hmm.
A feat that led to a string of disasters between 1898 and 1916, which altogether killed a total of 58 men.
Jesus.
So basically, tragedy could strike at any moment if a pocket of natural gas was inadvertently ignited during the drilling process, because they're just down there drilling through bedrock, which means there's sparks a-flying. And then if they hit a pocket of natural gas, this underwater tunnel explodes.
No.
This is very, what is it? What's that movie? Like Daybreak or something with fucking Sylvester Stallone. I don't know. You guys, it's fine. It's just really scary.
And you're like miles from the opening of the tunnel.
Yeah.
And
it's 1900.
That's why they had canaries.
Yeah.
Yikes.
So on August 4th, 1901, I skipped a sentence, sorry. There were 2 gas explosions in 1898 and then 2 more in 1901 and 1902. On August 4th, 1901, there was also a fire that was ignited by cinders from a boiler stack in a temporary water intake crib. We'll get to the cribs. I'll explain what that is in a moment. So 5 men burned to death in the fire and 3 drowned while trying to escape after the tunnel they were digging started to flood.
No.
Like, can you imagine?
No.
That's really fucking scary.
Then 1 rescue worker also died while trying to make it to the trapped workers in the flooded, exploded fire water death tunnel.
Cool.
Yeah.
God, is your case over yet?
No, it gets worse. Thankfully, the work was completed in 1904 and there was a period of respite. But this was brief because within just a few years, more tunnels were needed because they needed fresher, deeper lake water because the poopy water was just
too poopy.
Too poopy.
Yeah, lol, too poopy.
Too poopy for some of them.
Yeah. So by 1910, questions were being raised about the existing tunnel's integrity and the possible need for costly and dangerous repairs. So it was just a fucking mess. Reading all this, my first thought was maybe we should stop digging tunnels if it keeps on killing people. But again, having a clean water supply is pretty fucking essential. And at this point in time, there was a rising typhoid epidemic in the city.
They had to get that clean water.
Yeah. So, and typhoid can kill a lot of fucking people. In fact, at this time, it actually had a higher fatality rate than measles, scarlet fever, and influenza combined.
Whoa.
That's wild.
They need that clean stuff.
Yeah. And also that doesn't even account for like cholera, which I guess is different than typhoid. I don't know. Science. But
it's all poop related.
Poopy water diseases. Don't fuck with them.
PWD.
Yeah.
PWD.
Quote, in 1910, the Board of Health reported that expenditures for the city's health programs had not kept pace with those in other major U.S. cities. Dr. C.E. Ford, Secretary of the Board of Health, warned that since public health was a purchasable commodity,
oh my God,
Cleveland could, quote, determine its own death rates. So I think he was like casting shade, and he was like, look, like if you want to save people's lives, you got to pay for it, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But that came out rough.
Well, I don't know. I think it was pretty powerful to be like, how many people are you willing to let die for not paying for sanitation?
It's a very like statistician's way of putting it.
Yeah.
little brutal.
So a new tunnel is proposed, one that would extend even farther out into Lake Erie. And construction on this grand new tunnel started in March of 1914. And at the beginning, the construction was actually celebrated for its novel safety features and like its safety record. But to be fair, there was a pretty low bar for like tunnel building safety records. They were like, no collapses today. We're on a roll.
A banner day.
Yeah. So this all changed in the summer of 1916. On July 24th, 1916, Harry Vokes, the 27-year-old acting foreman of the project — can you imagine putting a 27-year-old in charge of something this big nowadays?
No.
Well, if the life expectancy was 45, he's middle-aged.
Yeah.
So he led a team of men down into the tunnel to a new crib known as Crib Number 5.
Are you going to tell us about the cribs?
MTV
Now
cribs.
I'm going to tell you about the MTV cribs. So there are a couple photos on the drive of a crib. A crib in this context is not a hip-hop term for one's property. It is a, quote, structure built to house and protect offshore water intakes. It looks like basically like a little oil rig, but it's for
It's cute.
these water type projects.
It looks like a circus tent boat.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Circus boat.
A little circus tent boat.
How cute are you?
But I think basically there's a big tunnel under that.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't move around. It is where
it's connected to the ground.
So this is where they go to like have lunch while they're digging the tunnel below?
That I don't know. But I think it's like the mainframe of where they connect some hoses to. I don't know. People.
Okay.
I'm not an engineer.
Love it.
It's the above ground part of the below ground tunnels.
Yeah. It's the headquarters. It's the HQ in the lake. So they're down there working, and natural gas vents up from the lake bed. Somehow there's a spark, probably from the drilling, and boom.
Okay.
The explosion buried Vokes and his entire work crew under hundreds of feet of mud and debris.
Oh, dear. Oh, dear.
Oh, yuck.
Rescue efforts immediately followed. Again, it's 1916.
Right. What are they going to do?
The first two attempts were led by crib superintendent John Johnston and construction superintendent Gus Van Duzen. Tragically, not only did these attempts fail to rescue any of the trapped men, but they also resulted in the deaths of 10 of the rescue workers. And the reason why is they were getting down into the tunnels and then they were suffocating because they were hit by all this pent-up natural gas.
So they weren't collapsed in on, they were...
I don't believe these 10 rescue workers were collapsed in on. I believe they were suffocating from the gas in the tunnels, and we'll get to it. So more rescue attempts followed, but it soon was a matter of rescuers going in to rescue the previous rescuers, and things were spiraling out of control. That happened like 3 or 4 times. Like it was just, they just were like losing more men to these rescue efforts.
They're
Just sending more and more in.
Yeah.
They're making
to
their
die.
own burial mounds
Oh, that was dark.
That's
Okay.
dark, yeah.
over and over. Layers.
Uh-huh.
Get it?
Okay.
Thanks, Lucy.
Yep. Okay. Send emails to lucy@derek.com. So authorities knew that they had to find another way to get as many people out of the tunnel alive as possible. And so they reluctantly reached out to a man named Garrett Morgan.
Garrett.
Why reluctantly, do you ask?
Because he sounds like a dick.
Nope. Because of racism.
Oh.
That'll do it.
So Garrett Morgan, a black man, was born in Paris, Kentucky in 1877.
Paris, Kentucky.
There are so many cities in Kentucky that are like Paris, Versailles.
Versailles.
It's not Versailles, it's Versailles, Kentucky.
Wow.
There's a lot.
They're taking their
epic.
fleur-de-lis really seriously.
Not Lebanon. It's not pronounced Lebanon, Kentucky. I think it's pronounced like Lebanon, Kentucky or something.
Lebanon.
Lebanon,
Steve
Kentucky.
Lebanon, Kentucky.
Yeah, anyway, it's crazy. So he's a black man. He's born in Kentucky in an almost exclusively African-American community because it's 1877. He's the 7th of 11 children. He received a 6th grade education at Branch Elementary School, and at the age of 14, now clearly a fully fledged adult man,
Yeah, at 14 years old. Yeah.
he moved to Cincinnati, Ohio to look for work.
Oh my God.
Gotta do what you gotta do. Gotta pay the rent, support the family.
Life was
14.
just different.
Yeah, it hit different.
So throughout his teenage years, Garrett worked as a handyman, but he yearned to do more. And so with his earnings as a handyman, he hired a tutor to help him continue and finish his studies and like get him through at least high school, but like beyond. And this is a really good thing because Garrett was nothing short of brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
He had a really active and creative mind, but also like really practical.
He
Like,
was
had
a
both.
man.
What?
He was a man.
A full-grown 14-year-old man.
14-year-old man. Well, he just was really, really fucking smart. And it's great that he, through just like grit and determination, was able to like continue his studies so that he could get to a point where he could use his smarts to create these inventions. So we'll get to it. So he had this active and creative mind. He's constantly coming up with new inventions to solve real world problems. So he also had like a great engineering mind. And in 1895, he moved to Cleveland. He started as like a repairman for sewing machines at a clothing company just to like pay the bills. While there, he fucking invented like 2 new attachments for sewing machines that became very popular. One was a belt fastener something, and one was a zigzag something.
Amazing.
Incredible. Thank you.
Jeez.
Garment makers all over the world listening to us right now are going
Screaming.
screaming.
Yeah. In 1907, he opened his own sewing machine shop. He had like 32 employees pretty quickly. Like he was very successful. He founded the Cleveland Association of Colored Men. He was just on the up and up. In 1908, he and his first wife, Marianne, opened a shop called Morgan's Cut Rate Ladies Clothing Store.
Obsessed.
After a couple years, though, he got bored of just like running the store. He really wanted to focus more on his inventions. And so over the years, he had come up with all kinds of other things. One of the more profitable ones, he had a line of hair care products that
Cool.
he sold under. It was a lot of like straightening products for black textured hair.
Yeah.
So this was sold under the name the G.A. Morgan Hair Refining Company.
Cool.
Damn.
In 1914, inspired by the start of the Great War, he received a patent for his smoke hood design. So go on the drive and take a look at this bad boy. I've got photos of him modeling.
Oh my God. That's what this is.
Yeah.
Wow.
Damn.
So this smoke and ammonia protection device is better known today as a gas mask.
Fuck yeah.
Dang.
Morgan's mask was the prototype for gas masks used during World War I.
Wow.
That's wild.
This guy from like fairly rural Kentucky who
Right.
had a 6th grade education and faced all kinds of immediately post-Civil War discrimination,
Right.
invented the gas mask during World War I.
Jesus.
Fucking badass.
That's so cool.
So by 1916, Garrett Morgan was known for his innovative smoke hood, which he referred to as a breathing device. And Cleveland authorities turned to him to help in rescue efforts of the tunnel collapse because they were like, all right, this guy lives here. He invented this gas mask. We're having people dropping dead in a natural gas tunnel. he could probably help us, but he's black, so like we don't love that we're turning to him, but we're doing it.
Right.
So at the request of the Cleveland Police and the U.S. Bureau of Mines, Garrett, his brother Frank, and 2 other tunnel workers entered the gas-filled tunnel protected by their gas masks. They were able to rescue 2 men alive, including Gus Van Dusen.
Damn.
And then they retrieved 4 other bodies.
Wow.
Once gas from the tunnel was allowed to dissipate a bit, sandhogs were able to enter the tunnel. I'll get to it. And this was an attempt to recover because it was past the point of being able to rescue people at this point. The bodies of the original 9 workers who were still stuck under debris from the original explosion. So what the fuck is a sandhog?
Yep.
Sandhog is a slang term that is given to urban miners and construction workers who work on city excavation projects.
Oh, God. Oh, no.
Because there's so much sand involved with like building cities.
Because they're tunneling, they're digging, and there's a bunch of sand.
Sandhogs.
People, sandhogs themselves embrace the term.
Okay.
They're proud of their sandhog history.
All right.
being a
Hot girl
yachty.
summer.
Yeah.
Sandhog girl fall.
Mhm.
So, sorry. Like mining, sandhog jobs are often multi-generational since large tunnel projects often take many years. Just look at fucking Boston. They're still building some tunnel for the freeway. Started like 40 years ago.
Jesus Christ.
Fun fact, famed Hollywood heartthrob and womanizer of You're So Vain fame, Warren Beatty, worked as a sandhog on the 3rd tube of the Lincoln Tunnel in his youth.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. There you go. And everybody loves his sandhog.
Sick.
Okay.
He loved to tunnel. That one. With his
Ish.
sandhog.
Love it.
Move on.
Okay. So back to these old Cleveland Sandhogs. A great sports ball team name.
Oh,
The Cleveland Sandhogs. That would be so good.
They dug through the mud and had to wait as gas dissipated in the tunnel, and it took weeks, but by August 21st, they were finally able to bring all the bodies out of the tunnel.
Mm-hmm.
Tragically, during the final recovery effort, a sandhog, an Italian immigrant, Luigi Bucciarelli, fell from the crib into the lake and drowned.
Oh my
Which
God.
is really sad. So he was the last and 20th victim of the tragedy.
Mm-hmm.
God.
After the dust settled a bit, Cleveland City Hall launched a probe into how the disaster occurred. Because, like, digging 40 feet into the bedrock of a Great Lake in 1916
Sure.
is dangerous, but whatever.
Yeah, it's dangerous now.
Yeah, they wanted somebody to blame. So they do this investigation. Fingers were initially pointed at rescuers John Johnston and Gus Van Dusen just because, like, they were the first rescuers and that went so poorly.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the project's foreman, the 27-year-old Guy Vokes. Also, a chemist who was responsible for daily testing of air samples in the tunnels, looking for traces of natural gas. So, like, presumably, if he had done that testing and they had found a trace of natural gas, then presumably they wouldn't have been sent down to tunnel that day. But apparently that testing didn't happen on the day in question.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not good.
No.
However, when witnesses related to the project started to bring up other safety issues, like specifically how crib number 5 didn't have proper resuscitation equipment on hand.
Great.
And I also have a photo of the resuscitation equipment being used that people had. They were called pulmotors, like pulmonary motors.
So it's like a CPR machine?
Kind of. It's basically a thing that just like pumps oxygen straight into the lungs. but it doesn't do the chest compression. So it's
there's still a guy here compressing the chest.
Yeah, they're not. I mean, it's 1916. These were not very effective. They're no longer used today, but they were supposed to be on hand, and they weren't. They didn't have a telephone to call for help. So I'm guessing someone had to like reach shore via boat.
Oh my God.
They didn't even have a doctor, like a physician on hand, which they were supposed to have. So
oh my God.
It was bad. So they find all this shit out from their investigation, and suddenly the mayor, Harry L. Davis, is like, I think it's time to end the probe. Quote,
wrap it up. Nothing to see here.
Nothing to see here. Quote, every man did what he thought was best.
Yep, there was nothing we could have done differently, you guys.
So many people were at fault that they all just cancel out.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Oh.
Nothing we could. This was unavoidable.
Mm-hmm.
This was unavoidable. Yep. Bye-bye.
Yikes.
Bye-bye.
So then the project continued after this disaster because they still fucking need to get around the poopy water. And the Cleveland Waterworks Tunnel was finally completed 2 years later in 1918. The city's next big waterworks project started 30 years later in 1948. But this time they had cranes and barges and like prefabricated pipe, and it made it a lot safer. Garrett Morgan, meanwhile, went on to create his most famous invention. So the gas mask, not even his most famous invention.
Jeez.
Despite saving millions of lives during the war.
Millions of lives. His next invention possibly has saved more millions of lives.
Damn, safety guy.
What do you think he used? What did you think he invented? We talked about it at the beginning, and I said we'd get to it.
It's lights. Traffic lights.
Traffic lights.
Holy, he invented the traffic light?
Yes.
Wow.
What? So that's right. Garrett Morgan, inventor of the gas mask, also invented the modern 3-light traffic signal in 1923.
Unreal.
There were previous traffic lights, but it was basically just stop and go. He invented the
slow.
The
slow the fuck down. Yeah.
So he had witnessed a horrible car crash at an intersection, which inspired him to design a new signal that included a third warning light. And he sold the rights to this invention to General Electric for $40,000, which, time money converter, would be about $720,000 today, which you might think not enough.
Well, he didn't know how widespread they'd be,
Yes, and because it's a public utility and not a private product, he couldn't have just sold it to a private company. He had to sell it to a public utility.
Sure.
Because nobody else you're not making money off traffic lights.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You're just saving lives with traffic lights.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So, on the fucking capitalism.
Yeah.
So, on the 100th anniversary of the Cleveland Tunnel disaster, descendants of the victims and the rescuers met with Garrett Morgan's granddaughter, Sandra Morgan, who looks so much like him, by the way. Like, you can totally...
Really? Are there pictures on the drive?
You can totally tell she's his granddaughter. It's so exciting. He was
No way.
Right? He was very handsome, too.
Amazing.
Can't you tell?
Yeah. The smile.
Right?
Yeah, and around the eyes.
I know. What a cutie.
My God.
That's so cute.
So they all got together at an event entitled Commemoration of the 100th Anniversary of Historic Rescue by Garrett A. Morgan. And there were also many relatives of rescuers who died in the disaster, and they had been contacted ahead of time by the Irish American Archives Society and informed of their ancestors' heroic rescue efforts. And so they didn't know, a lot of them, that their ancestors were involved in this. And they got to attend. Because a lot of the tunnelers and diggers were Irish immigrants.
Yeah.
So also in attendance was Barbara Lind, Gus Van Duzen's granddaughter, who said, quote, "Men died to bring us clean water, and we take that for granted. It's very emotional. It's also sad that Morgan didn't get credit for his role." So we're going to give him some credit today because what a fucking brilliant.
Seriously.
Man, think about how many millions of lives this one man saved.
That's
crazy. Between fucking gas masks and modern traffic lights, you can't even count.
Right. You can't even quantify
the number of lives.
And then he also was fucking down there wearing the gas mask in the tunnel, hauling bodies out.
Yeah, that's wild.
Poor bastard. God.
Incredible. Just incredible. I'm in awe of this man.
You go, Garrett.
Woo.
Well, and thanks for teaching us shit that, like, we aren't taught in fucking history class.
Mm-hmm.
For obvious fucking reasons. But yeah, that was such a fascinating and incredible and really fucking tragic.
Yeah.
But amazing story. Okay, Cleveland.
Okay, Cleveland.
Climbing back up in our
mine
hearts.
will not be as honorable. All right. So are you ready for my seg?
I don't know.
I'm not really calling it a case because it's like it was a crime against like humanity in its own way.
Okay.
It's fine. Anyway, I too wanted to cover a classic Cleveland caper, aka disaster, this week. And I chose this one for the photos alone because they are shocking. And also I saw this on TikTok, like a story about this on TikTok like a month ago. And I cannot stop thinking about it. And then I was slightly looking ahead and I was like, oh my God, Cleveland fucking crimes. Finally, my moment. Because like when I saw the TikTok, it didn't even compute that this was in Cleveland. Like that's not even what I was focused on. It was just the imagery from this day that I was focused on.
See, I've heard briefly about this.
I don't know where we're going.
So in 1986, the United Way had an idea to get some eyes on Cleveland and raise money for local nonprofits in need of support. Because United Way is basically like a nonprofit that funnels money to other nonprofits.
Yeah.
It's kind of wild.
It's like a weird nebulous middleman.
Well, it's based off of this like World War. I was reading about this a little bit. It's based off of like this World War I era creation of the quote unquote community chest, where people would put funds, people like more privileged and well-off people would put funds into like a community nonprofit fund that then would get funneled out into the community to support, you know, individuals who needed support through by way of like other smaller community actions.
It's charity intake crib number 5.
Yeah, it is. It's just gotten really big. Anyway, so their idea was balloons.
Like birthday balloons?
Yep.
Okay.
They wanted to enlist locals, mostly children, and in schools to sell balloons in their communities, but not for the buyer to then like have balloons to use for their own purposes, like in those gift wrap or like holiday resales we used to do, where you'd sell something and then the person would actually receive an item.
Oh, I used to get so exhilarated.
You have always been competitive, and cute, so you crushed it.
I did sell a lot of wrapping paper.
Me too.
Loved those.
I think this was it's a gateway to Cutco knives, y'all. It's a gateway to pyramid schemes, so be careful. But to be they'd be selling these balloons to be released together in a massive display in downtown Cleveland to break the Guinness World Record for largest balloon release.
Largest pollution.
Well, we'll get to the pollution.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Why did it take so long for the collective to understand how fucking bad balloon releases are?
This is
because it looked
1986.
Really cool. Oh yeah. It looked really fucking cool, and if you go to my folder,
I've looked at them. It looks insane.
See how fucking cool it looks. Yeah, it's shocking. It's shocking. So,
for some reason in my brain, they were all tied together.
No, baby. No. So the kids get to work selling sponsorships at $1 for 2 balloons. And then the fundraiser ended when the balloon count reached 1.5 million balloons. Their goal was 2 million balloons, but 1.5 ended up being sufficient to break the record. And I think they were closing in on like the time to then procure, inflate, and release the balloons.
Who blew those up?
This could like blot out the sun.
Oh, we'll get to all of it.
It looks like one of those. What are those swarms of like swallows?
Locusts.
Yes, no, the swallows that can move and make shapes.
They
in
like
the sky.
undulate. Yeah.
Shit, starlings. Starlings.
Swarms of starlings.
Yeah.
They're
my God. Okay.
Yep.
This is so
murmuration.
Yeah, they're pretty
A
amazing.
shape-shifting flock of thousands of starlings.
They're so amazing.
fuck.
So, like I said, the goal was 2 million, but 1.5 was enough to break the record that had been set a year prior at the 30th anniversary of Disneyland in California, where they released 1 million balloons. Some reports said 1.2 million, but either way, 1.5 would break the record. So, from Wikipedia, quote, the stunt was coordinated by a Los Angeles-based company headed by Treb Heining, and the company was called Balloon Art by Treb, which spent 6 months preparing for it. A rectangular structure the size of a city block was set up to hold balloons on the southwest quadrant of Cleveland's public square. So that's what you see in that first photo with like the arch of balloons.
Yeah.
So what that is a big box with no top, but all you can see is the portions of net that are currently filled with balloons, but the net goes all the way over that box, and they filled everything over that block-long box.
I hate it.
It's just such a massive scale. It's like scary to look at.
It's triggering my megalophobia.
Yeah, a little bit. So, it measured 250 feet, this box that they built, by 150 feet, was 3 stories high, and was covered with a one-piece net of woven mesh material. This is the part where I texted you guys, and I was like, LOL, this is cracking me up because this reminds me so much of Elizabeth.
Oh, yeah. My mom would have been all about this.
She really would have.
Inside, 2,500 volunteers, unpaid, consisting largely of high school students, spent hours filling the balloons with helium.
Oh, I'm so triggered.
One described the preparations as like an assembly line nonstop.
My mom,
for their efforts, volunteers received free t-shirts.
My mom
She would have
have
signed us up for that.
signed us up without asking us
Yep.
on a Saturday for like 12-hour shifts.
Yep.
Easily. And I literally wrote, would you have done this / would Elizabeth have signed us up for this? And yes,
Absolutely,
she
we would have, and we would have just gotten in the minivan, and she would have just driven us there and then told us on the way.
Yep.
You have plans Saturday.
Yeah.
Not my child.
Yep.
She just
We would have
corralled
been
us into
hands
things.
bloodied, filling thousands of balloons. So fucking fun.
Oh my god!
So they
I'm
set-
like literally triggered right now.
I know. As I was reading this, I was like, "Oh God, this is
The amount of
hitting close to
volunteering for
home.
weird events that I did in
Weird
my
events
childhood.
where you get a free T-shirt."
Yeah, we had to sing in front of our high school. That was bad.
yeah.
Excelsior's sesquicentennial.
Oh yeah. Every year we were volunteered for some
Art on the
fucking
lake.
That Hellman's thing.
Hellman's
mayonnaise
mayonnaise
contest.
competition.
She wanted us to try out for that movie with Janet Jackson. Didn't she bring? She ended up getting the date wrong, but she had us all ready to
missed our
go
audition.
try out for a movie at the Mall of America featuring Janet Jackson.
Okay. Wonder if that ever got made.
Oh,
My god.
Unreal. So this easily could have been us if we were just born the right time. So they set the release date of Saturday, September 27th for about 3 or 4 p.m., but noticed that morning a considerable rainstorm was making its way toward the city. So they moved up the launch to 1:50 p.m. to avoid the bad weather. Over 100,000 people gathered around the square to witness the event. Despite its potentially devastating consequences, it honestly had to have been spectacular to behold. I mean, there's video, so much photographic footage of this. It's like nuts.
Did no one flag up any of the possible consequences? Was nobody like,
Frankly,
what about the birds?
yeah.
I'm certain people did, and the people with money and in charge didn't give a shit.
Right.
You know, the
Trev
governor
Heine
and
was
mayor
just
are like,
fuck you.
I'm going to make millions on these balloons. And then, Cleveland's like, this is going to put Cleveland on the map.
Yeah.
We are only known for our burning
Balloon
rivers.
City.
We're going to be the Balloon City. Exactly.
We're not the poopy water city anymore.
Yeah.
We're a Balloon City now.
Oh my god.
So obviously I put a bunch of those pictures on the drive/blog. So listeners, please check them out. They are wild. And then definitely Google Cleveland balloon launch and just watch all the video. It's unbelievable. But while we revel in the visuals, we're going to ruin it before we go on to what happened immediately after in Cleveland specifically, with some inconvenient truths about the environmental impact of balloons and specifically large balloon releases. So, quote, balloon launches are bad for the environment in several ways, but we can start with wildlife. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration points out that wildlife can confuse the small, bright pieces of a balloon as food.
Yeah.
In a website blog, the agency says balloons that are released into the air don't just go away. They either get snagged on something such as tree branches or electrical wires, deflate and make their way back down to Earth, or rise until they pop and fall back to Earth kind of shredded, where they can create a lot of problems. Many balloons that are not properly disposed of end up in the ocean and along shores, becoming marine debris. Balloons can be mistaken for food by wildlife, and if eaten and ingested, balloons and other marine debris can lead to loss of nutrition, internal injury, starvation, and death. So something I was reading was that they'll eat this and then they'll feel the sensation of being full.
They won't eat actual
but then their body can't actually digest it, so they just feel full.
They just don't eat anymore.
Days and days and days on end, and just don't eat and then starve to death. Because their body can't process and pass plastic rubber.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they just
die. They accidentally gastric bypass themselves.
Pretty much. String or ribbon that is often found attached to balloons can cause entanglement, both internally and externally. If it's eaten, it can
it ties
wrap
up
in your guts. Yep. String can wrap around marine life, causing injury, illness, and suffocation. The National Geographic Society also points out the trash issue. Solid waste, meaning garbage, trash, litter, in the world's waters, and solid waste that accumulates on the shorelines of waterways is known as marine debris. Marine debris has been recognized as a form of pollution for over 50 years and is often described as one of the most pervasive marine pollution problems because it is found from the most remote beach locations to the most visited beaches throughout the world. So there's nowhere you can go without trash.
They're
washing
floating
up.
Trash islands the size of New Jersey in the ocean.
Mm-hmm. Balloons, even quote-unquote biodegradable ones, are a huge contributor to microplastics in our water and food supply and contribute to a whopping 20% of power outages.
What?
Because they get caught up in fucking power lines and blow up fucking, what are those?
Shit.
Box
Transformers.
things? Transformers. And so people will be oh, what about biodegradable? Blah, blah, blah. It's that doesn't mean that it's just environmentally safe. It still will take a really long time to break down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Still contains plastics. Still will affect wildlife. Still will fucking fall into the water supply.
Still fuck shit up for a long time. It's just not forever.
Yeah. So if you're going to do balloons, they at least need to be popped and properly disposed of. You just I understand that there's significance to balloon releases. I've done them for lost loved ones in the past. None of us are perfect, but there are sustainable alternatives to that.
Mm-hmm.
And those, you can research what those sustainable alternatives are to honor your loved one without a balloon release.
Yeah.
Just please don't.
And certainly
do
not
that.
a 1.5 million balloon release.
Yeah.
I Googled it. There are t-shirts that say I survived Balloonfest 86.
There you go. There you go. So obviously this was just awful environmentally, period. But it also caused legitimate chaos on this particular day. And some of the headlines, looking back at newspapers that were released in the weeks following the balloon release, are just so fucking over the top. I love it. But anyway, here's what happened. The storm they were trying to avoid had not begun right over the city, but as we know how storms work, it was a result of a cold front that had moved in, and that cold air is heavy, and this essentially stopped the balloons en masse in their tracks when they were supposed to continue floating away and then deflate and drop over the city and set them like careening back down to earth, still fully inflated.
Oh my God.
So the mass of dropping balloons clogged the land and waterways of Northeast Ohio for days. They had spread out everywhere, needing bulldozers to move them out of roadways and causing major traffic issues.
So they're inflated with helium, but the cold air is pushing them down.
The cold air had pushed them down, and then they were like just cold and deflated enough to like
not
linger on
again?
the not rise back up
To
again.
just be right in our field of vision.
Right, because then the rain started.
The wrinkly old 2-day-old balloons.
The like sad ball sack 2-day-old balloons. And now they're all now and
Still,
it's raining now.
Just a little bit hard to catch.
Yeah.
Yep. Traffic collisions were reported, quote, as drivers swerved to avoid slow motion blizzards of multicolored orbs, or simply took their eyes off the road to gawk at the overhead spectacle. So even if it had all gone right, drivers were still fucking idiots. We're gonna be like, oh, balloons. What?
I mean, I would be distracted.
I'd be distracted by one balloon.
I'd have to pull over. I couldn't have done it. Drivers on the lakefront Cleveland Memorial Shoreway ran into fences as well as each other before the roadway was shut down entirely for cleaning. People could not handle it. Balloons also descended upon Burke Lakefront Airport, which is a small public airport right on the lake. We have one in St. Paul that's really similar. And it's like basically in downtown Cleveland, like on this little lakefront plot. That had to shut down completely until all the balloons could be cleared off the runways. Balloons were even reported to have washed ashore on the Canadian side of Lake Erie, causing water pollution. Like, there were so many fucking balloons, you guys. Like, imagine watching a massive cloud start to float away before it turns around and is pushed by cold air right back on top of you. I'm, like, getting upset. It's like a new fear. And I never have to experience this. I'm just afraid of it. Apparently, the stunt had been planned with the understanding that most of the balloons were supposed to stay over downtown Cleveland, with only about 10% of the balloons expected to make it over Lake Erie, which, like, 10% of 1.5 million is still a lot of fucking balloons making it over Lake Erie.
Unconscionable pollution.
Yeah.
So 86.
It's so 86. But due to the weather, 60% of the balloons landed in the water, with the remaining 40% clogging the shore and shorefront roadways.
Oh my God.
So with 60% of the balloons going down on the water, something bad happened.
A lot of dead
Two
fish.
fishermen named Raymond Broderick and Bernard Sulzer, who had gone out on the evening of September 26th, so the night before, were reported missing the morning of the 27th by their families on the day of the event. And they were out fishing on Lake Erie, and they're like avid fishermen.
Oh my God.
But they hadn't come back. Well,
Lachelle.
we'll not super get to it, but let me just get to it. So rescuers spotted before the balloon release their 16-foot boat anchored like to the west on Lake Erie. But then by the time they could assemble their search, the balloon debacle had happened. And a Coast Guard search and rescue helicopter could not reach the area because of what they called an asteroid field of balloons.
Oh my God.
A search and rescue boat crew tried to spot the fishermen floating in the lake, but guard officials said balloons in the water made it impossible to see whether anyone was in the lake.
Of course.
Oh.
The search had to be suspended entirely on September 29th. So they'd been gone. They'd been missing. They never came back on the night of the 26th. Their boat was spotted on the 27th, but people couldn't get to them because it was covered and surrounded by
balloons.
Fucking hundreds of thousands of balloons.
Holy shit.
This is such a lesson in like
man-made disasters.
Externalities. Yeah, like just oh no.
So on September 29th, it's like we cannot continue this search until this cleanup is done. So the Coast Guard suspends the search. The cleanup is still going, and the fishermen's bodies washed ashore by the 30th of September.
Oh, they just washed ashore.
So we don't know if they were already dead before the balloon attack or the
balloon attack.
Yeah, but I mean, the balloon attack is accurate.
The balloon disaster, or it just impeded.
Right. So the wife of one of the fishermen sued the United Way of Cleveland and the company that organized the balloon release for $3.2 million. They later settled outside of court on undisclosed terms. And while the missing men may have drowned before the balloon release, there's no arguing that the search and rescue mission was severely impeded by the balloons. And members of the Coast Guard recalled searching the waters with strained eyes in a panic, unable to tell the difference between the balloons and the missing boaters' potential life jackets, helmets, or heads.
Yeah, can you imagine? It's searching for a needle in a haystack.
Literally. Many believe that they could have been saved if only Balloonfest 86 had littered the water, but their time of death is unclear because of obviously what we know, what water exposure can do to the body.
Yeah.
They couldn't pin it in that X amount of hours from when did they go overboard,
Sure.
So they drowned somehow?
They drowned. Yep, they drowned. I don't think it could ever be determined whether they had drowned before or after the balloons were released. Mm-hmm. Which is why Cleveland and the United Way and the balloon company weren't that much more on the hook.
Right.
But either way, the balloons really fucked up the search and left their loved ones waiting without answers for days until their bodies, probably fucking covered in balloons, washed ashore on Lake Erie.
Oh, God.
I mean, I can't.
Oh, it's so awful.
I can't even fucking imagine.
Just for some stupid ass stunt.
Yep.
For a nonprofit, charity themed.
Yeah.
I'm sure this is also a classic example of intent versus impact.
Holy shit.
I didn't mean to murder anyone with my 1.5 million balloons.
Or completely destroy an ecosystem.
Yep. So despite Despite the very real and tragic interference with this search, some rich bitch had to make it about her in the most rich bitch way imaginable. So another quote-unquote tragedy that occurred. Balloons landing on a pasture in Medina County, Ohio, allegedly spooked Louise Nowakowski's prized and extraordinarily expensive Arabian horses, which allegedly suffered permanent injuries as a result. Nowakowski sued the United Way of Cleveland for $100,000 in damages and settled outside of court for an undisclosed amount.
Well, how dare they spook her prize Arabian horses? No, but actually, I'm sure that did scare the horses.
I'm sure it did. It scared me.
Ray's afraid of balloons.
Oh, good for Ray.
I had balloons at my birthday, and then when they got the 2-day-old, barely floating, but still really ominously moving
around,
coming toward him.
He's so freaked out by those. It's a really unnatural
movement.
It's not right.
It ain't
not right.
He's so freaked out about them.
It's definitely not fucking right.
Kenny and Jerry sent some balloons for Sonia's birthday, but they're still going pretty strong, actually. They're in our kitchen.
Nailed it.
But I will.
You're not going to release them, so you'll be fine.
And dispose of them properly.
You'll be fine. The fundraiser as a whole lost a lot of money due to cost overruns and fucking
lawsuits.
Oh
my God.
And the Guinness Book of World Records merely mentioned it once in a 1988 publication before abolishing the category entirely. So they don't even have
for safety.
The record.
They're don't do this.
Yep. So they had the record for a year, kinda, and it's not in the Guinness Book at all.
Oh my God.
There are posters.
So was it worth it, Cleveland?
Are posters and T-shirts about surviving Balloonfest 86, and I think we're all gonna need them.
I kind of want one.
Fully agree that we're all going to need them.
None of us were alive then.
Some of them are pretty cute, actually. Cute designs.
I love it.
Wow.
Anyway, that's my Cleveland story.
Wow. Well, that was
fabulous.
I know, right?
It was so wild. The photos are incredible.
They really are.
Drop some of those t-shirt photos into the drive.
Yeah.
These are cute.
Send a link.
Anyway, thank you to our fan picker Allie and their gateway gal Decrypt and everybody over at Burning River Roller Derby.
Yeah.
This was awesome.
And CLE Urban Winery, shout out.
Maybe we'll have to give Cleveland another try. Maybe.
I would
if
go
Cleveland
there in
releases 2 million balloons for us, then we'll come back.
Right. Yeah. It's going to depend on the balloon
We want
number.
our balloons. Yeah.
We'll put it in our rider. Okay. Well, thank you so much. We love you all.
See you later.
Love you. Bye-bye.